Hello there, everyone! Today we are taking a look at Runestone Keeper, a very interesting, difficult to describe little game by Blackfire Games. And this one's odd. The main reason I wanted to cover it is because it's just so different, and it's got that mechanical style that is kind of reliant on keeping you coming back every now and then. It's fairly casual. It's something you can jump in, play for even just a few minutes if you want, and then hop out, feel like you've maybe unlocked a couple things and then come back later. It's got various unlocks and secrets and things that are the kind of thing that are gonna keep coming back, really. And it's just one of those light, small games to hop into every now and then, which makes it kind of interesting. But casual does not mean easy. The game is actually very challenging, so let's just jump in. Welcome to Runestone Keeper. And this is where you'll always begin. This is kind of like your hub, I guess you could say. And not all of these buildings are unlocked right now. I don't know what this is yet. But as you can see, there's a sheep icon right here, which means we're ready to go. Now you'll need, you know all you need to know about the game, really, I think. So, okay, there you go, video's over. But really, you have a couple of characters to choose from. When you first start, you'll have Guy only. And he is a kind of balanced melee, somewhat tanky kind of character, and every character has a passive as well as different starting stats, as you can see here. These are all of your stats, and they all pretty much do exactly what you would think. Really nothing like extremely difficult to understand there. And his passive is very useful. Every time you go down a floor, he'll heal. So that's nice, but I actually have been using her for a little while. She starts with a pretty useful spell that basically it's like a transmogrification spell, turns an enemy into a sheep. And also she heals a lot whenever she casts a spell. Has a bit more mana, and starts with a ranged weapon, a magic staff. And that's important for a reason I'll come into later, but she's much easier to kill, a lot less health. There's also this character which I haven't unlocked yet, which I'm guessing is maybe some kind of bow user, or maybe like a daggery rogue or something like that. I don't know yet, but I hope to unlock him eventually. Or her, I can't quite tell. And these are your unlocks, so you'll be getting gold as you go through, and the gold is persistent. You can spend it in dungeon, but also every time you die and end up coming back to the hub, you will have your amount that you have left, and you can spend it on permanent upgrades to help make your job a little bit easier the next time through. And these get quite expensive, and as you can tell, there's actually several of them with different ranks each, and these unlock from different things. Mostly just maxing these out unlocks another one. So, for instance, when I maxed out Vampire to help myself heal a little better, I unlocked Follower, and things like that. It just keeps going down the list. And then you have an item shop, allows you to spend some gold to get an item to start with. That's a system we'll have to explain once we actually get in. But your starting equipment, ignore all this nonsense for now, is determined by your character, but it's all very basic. So I've just got basic armor and a magic wand that has a little bouncy purple projectile of magical goodness. And so here we go. There is an endless mode. It tells you, all about it. And there's also an Abyss mode, which I do not want to even try, that both of these will unlock once you actually complete the main mode for the first time, which I haven't done yet because the game is really hard. There are also gods you can find and worship, and I've found several of them, but the only ones I've worshipped so far are these two. And once you've actually worshipped one, you can then worship them from the very beginning, if you want to, for a gold cost, instead of having to search the dungeon for one of their altars. With this character, I like to worship this goddess, because it lets me heal whenever I get a soul point, which you get all the time from exploring and from killing enemies. And because she has so little health, this constant healing is really useful. But it does cost gold, and the more times you do it in a row from dungeon runs, the more gold it actually costs to worship. So we're going to do that. Let's get a billion Steam achievements all of a sudden, and go in. So this is where the game gets really weird. So, as you can see, there's actually no representation of your character in the dungeon. Your character information's over here, but this is technically where you are, but there's nothing here. So the way the game works is actually entirely mouse-driven. You click to uncover bits of the dungeon. Ow. And sometimes you get screwed over. You can always right-click on just about anything to get some information on what it is. That goes with monsters, which is very necessary, by the way, traps, abilities, items, etc., etc. So while exploring, you will be clicking these tiles to reveal them. These are called mist tiles. And then this is just the fog of war outside of that. Mist represents tiles next to you that you can go to, and then the fog is just stuff you haven't gotten close to yet. Every time you reveal a mist tile, you'll get a soul point, which, of course, because of that goddess that I'm worshipping, will heal me if I need it. And you'll reveal what's in that tile. Okay, there's our first enemy. So here's what happens. You can right-click, it'll tell you all about the enemy. This is a scary pumpkin, and it is rather scary because it explodes if you don't kill it within 3 moves, dealing double its current damage directly to you. So all I gotta do is click on it. I have 9 damage, but it's magic damage because I have a magic wand, and this has 20% resistance, which means I'm probably only going to do, what, like 7 damage? So as long as I hit it twice, there we go, and there we go, killed it. But I did take some damage because in traditional roguelike style, whenever you attack something, it also attacks you back, generally speaking. Unless you deliver the killing blow, in which case it doesn't get a chance to attack you back, even though you sort of attack at the same time. This is where things get confusing. Like I said, the game is very odd. For instance, if I just go over here and click, this guy won't do anything. I'm taking turns, but because he doesn't have a ranged weapon, like a bow, he won't actually hit me. And this is... Right, this is where the game has some similarities to a game by the name of Desktop Dungeons, which is a really fun roguelike, kind of in the classic style with some interesting mechanics, and this game is very much like that. It is a sort of roguelike dungeon crawler, but also a puzzle game in how its mechanics work. And by that I mean you're kind of exploring through this dungeon, but you're also trying to figure out which monsters you want to attack next and things like that to get to the exit. Now, you don't actually have to kill every monster on the floor. You'll be looking for a key and then the door to go down, and only one monster will have the key. But you do get a bonus for killing all of the monsters on a particular dungeon floor, as well as experience for killing them. So basically what I'm looking at, there's a lot of pretty powerful stuff. I really don't like this thing. It's going to deal a lot of damage to me, and the fact that it heals itself because it hits me is going to make it take longer to kill than usual, which means I'm going to be taking more damage than usual, which for a character with as low health as she has is bad. So I'm going to use this spell. Boop! You are now a sheep, and I can kill you in one hit if I actually hit you. There's miss chance, by the way. You also have a dodge chance, so both you and the enemies can miss and dodge. Now, enemies with blue frames drop mana when you kill them. This thing is interesting. These phantoms have a very high dodge chance, but the more tiles are uncovered, the lower that chance goes. So in other words, you want to leave these guys until later, where you have a much better chance of actually hitting them with your swings. Also, since I have that magic wand, it occasionally bounces, which is very useful. It allows me to damage targets without them being able to damage me, because, again, in kind of roguelike style, it is turn-based and everyone goes at once, but monsters don't actually move, because, again, in the weird kind of puzzle game way, it's all represented in this kind of strange fashion. Basically, and there's the key, your character is like some sort of weird quantum superposition where you're everywhere and nowhere at once, if that makes any sense. You're not actually a character on the dungeon. You are basically just a cursor, and wherever you click is wherever you are. So it's a bit strange in that it doesn't actually involve maneuvering your character physically around. These hearts are very useful. These heal you, obviously, when you click on them, but if you're at full health, they permanently increase your maximum health. And so that's another kind of puzzle game aspect. You may want to leave those for a while and try and heal other ways and then come back to them later to get more maximum health instead of using them to heal you, unless you're in a really bad spot and you need the health right now. You'll also be finding items along the way, and this is what your main use of soul points is. These items here are various one-use sort of consumable special items you can find that do different things and take different amounts of soul energy to use. And once they're used once, generally speaking, they're done. And there are also features in the dungeon like these ballistae right here. So for instance, I can do this, and it repairs it so I can use it again, and I can choose which direction I want to fire it, and it'll attack monsters in that row. So that was the last monster on this floor, so it gives me a choice, and I'm going to take the gold because I'm already pretty much at full health, so I don't need that. And the other one is an item shop, which I don't have a lot of gold, so I'm not really going to do that. Keep getting more maximum health. This is another dungeon feature. This is, you can spend 10 points, and it will detect if any of the squares around it have monsters or traps. So I'll just do that for demonstration. So I know that tile has a trap, so I don't want to click on that and reveal it because I'll get hurt. That is a shop. These shops are nice because these are tattoo shops. And every god has several tattoos. You can spend those runes that you saw earlier to get tattoos that permanently enhance the power of the god. So in this case, getting this tattoo makes it restore 2 life points every time I get a soul point instead of just 1. And the next one after that makes me immune to the curse status effect and things like that. And you spend these. Now, the tutorial in the game is a bit... It's alright. I want to equip that because it has better armor than this. But the tutorial in the game is imperfect. It explains kind of how the game works generally, but because it's so odd, you sort of just have to play a couple rounds to kind of get the gist of it. But the tutorial, unfortunately, doesn't explain these at all. These are your runes. There are 3 of each grade, copper, silver, and gold. And you'll use them for a couple of things. You'll use them for worshipping shrines that you'll find. For instance, there might be a shrine of luck. And if you put a rune into it, it'll give you a boost to your luck for that run. So if I put a copper rune, it'll give me 10 more luck until I die, or, you know, and so on and so forth, 10, 20, and 30. And you can also use them, as you saw there, to get tattoos in tattoo shops if you're worshipping a god. So yeah, you might still be very confused. The game is certainly very odd. I've never quite played anything like it. And what it really keeps coming down to, that it reminds me of, is desktop dungeons. Because you're kind of exploring a dungeon, multiple floors of dungeons, trying to figure out the best way around the dungeon to fight the monsters in the best order possible, to take the least amount of damage possible, to continue as deep as you can. It's really strange, and there are actually a lot of enemies in the game, and every one of them has different, not only stats, but effects. So obviously a vampire heals when it hurts me, which again is awful, so congratulations, you're a sheep. Gotta be careful about using too much mana, because mana, obviously, as you can tell, doesn't regenerate very quickly, as in, not at all, by itself. You have to kill mana carrier creatures or use potions that you'll find as consumables and things like that. Boop. Oh, nice. So I got some leather boots. As you can tell, there's an item system in the game. And items, of course, do have stats, like any other things. Dodge, armor, you can increase your normal attributes. You can get special effects, like, say, how this bounces. One of my favorite effects is... there are some weapons that do damage to enemies as soon as you reveal them, before you even attack them. Which means it doesn't count as an attack, which means they don't get to hurt you. They start off damaged, basically. And as you can see, there's a slot for different types of equipment. Kind of your standard dungeon crawling fare of equipment, but the game is far from standard in terms of how it actually plays. Alright, so there's an enemy here. We'll reveal it, see what it is. Okay, it's a faceless, which makes me unable to use spells, but I can kill it in 2 hits, so there we go, nice and easy, get some gold. And another thing that reminds me of desktop dungeons is how the gold is persistent. So the gold you get in the dungeon can be spent in the dungeon on items and equipment that you find in shops. But also, when you're done, you actually, you know, after you die, basically, you take the character's gold with you and can use it on permanent upgrades afterwards. So ideally, you're trying to save as much gold as you can to kind of upgrade yourself permanently at the end of your your trip. So when you level up, you can increase one of your attributes. I'm going to increase my intelligence so I deal more damage with my staff. And obviously, as you can see here, different equipment has different attribute requirements, so this belt needs a strength 3 for its prerequisite, so I cannot use it, but that's okay. And this is how the game goes on. It's very simple in idea, but very weird. You know, it's really strange. I've never played a game that actually works like this before. Like I am, you know, keep mentioning, the closest I can think of is desktop dungeons, but even that isn't quite the same. It's very different. It's interesting, for sure. It's really, really weird. And I, for one, am actually pretty happy with it because of its weirdness. Also, as you can see, revealing enemies actually blocks off areas around them until the enemy is killed, which you have to be careful. Like I said, you don't have to kill every enemy on the level. Like right now, I have the key, so I could just go on to the next floor if I wanted, but since I've already killed so many of the monsters on this floor, I want to go ahead and just finish it off to get the bonus. Ow! There we go. There we go. So, I'll take the gold. Boop. Unfortunately, that health doesn't increase your maximum health if you're already topped up, so that's only for healing, unlike these. Alright, continue down. And it gets more and more difficult, and one of the interesting ways that it works is if you're playing a character that's using a melee weapon, you actually, even though you can't see your character, you have to be quote-unquote next to a monster to hit it. So in other words, if I had a melee weapon, I could hit either of these guys. But sometimes there are ranged monsters that will appear just in the fog, and if a monster like that appears, and you don't have revealed tiles next to it, you can't actually hit it with a melee weapon, because even though your character isn't represented anywhere here, revealed tiles are basically like where you have stepped. That's kind of the way to think of it. That's how it's represented. And so if you don't have any tiles there, then unless you have a ranged weapon like this character does, you can't actually hit them until you clear a path to them by revealing tiles repeatedly. Oh god. So I'm going to use this to get a guaranteed crit. Boom. Alright, and as you can see, I've saved this guy for a little longer as part of the strategy because he does so much damage, and of course he'll keep healing himself, and they don't have a maximum health, so they can heal just more and more and more, and snowball into being unkillable if you're not careful. So I killed the Faceless so I could actually use my spell on him. And that's where a lot of the strategy of the game comes in, is figuring out which order you want to actually kill the enemies in. As odd as that sounds. You kind of are trying to figure out what would be the best way to actually go about dispatching the foes in the dungeon, which is definitely interesting. It's weird. It's for sure, it's weird. It is quite different, but I approve of how different it is just because, you know, it's something new, I guess, and since I've never quite played anything like it, even though it's a bit weird at first and takes a lot of getting used to, and like I mentioned, the it's called, yay! Tutorial, unfortunately, is not perfect. It doesn't quite explain everything as good as it could. It can take a bit of time to actually get into the game, just because of how strange it is. Goddess of Magic, no thanks. I'm good. Oh! A crossbow. That's a nice crossbow. Pretty good, and of course it is a ranged weapon, but unfortunately, it's pretty much useless on my character right now because my stats for using something like that are very poor. Alright. Now, also one thing that isn't explained is the little attack icon. Sometimes it's a white sword and sometimes it's a blue sword. That's actually different types of damage. So, white is physical damage and blue is magic damage. Magic damage, you'll see that I had armor here. That's determined by what I have equipped. Dang it. So, for instance, this gives me 14 armor. That is restored every time I go down a floor. And physical damage will hit that armor first before it starts attacking my health gauge. Magic damage, such as what is done by my staff and by any enemy with a blue sword icon like this, will ignore your armor entirely. But mischance and things like that are still very much a thing. So, miss and dodge affects both kinds of damage, and also, enemies, as you have probably seen, can have that little shield icon in the top right corner of their portrait, which will also affect physical damage, but I'm doing magic damage, so nanner. Yeah, it's weird. It's really, genuinely very strange. I've never played a game like this before, and I guess that's why I'm kind of enthralled by it, because it's just that different. It's so different that, I have issues not appreciating it. It's that weird. I want some dodge chance. But like I said, it's definitely weird in a good way. And by that I mean it is it's not weird as in like unnecessarily difficult to learn or obtuse. It might feel that way at first, especially because, again, the tutorial is not fantastic. But it's really not too bad. And, also you have these. You have different little adventure things that can pop up that are in text that make you do various choices and all kinds of things like that. So I'm going to wake this guy up. I'm going to block his attack. I got hit, so now I just lost some life. And those can go in all kinds of different ways. You can even get various items that are quest items that will then be used in further little text adventures like that. What? Monsters with gold panes are elite monsters. These are very powerful. So, yeah. They have a special skill that only an elite will have, like in this case, Mistmaster. Locks all tiles as long as it's alive. And also it does a horrendous amount of damage. Elite monsters, though, are worth a lot of experience. I do have this. It will kill the monster but not give me any experience. I also have this, which lets me live at 1 health and not take any damage for 3 moves. It does do 18 damage, and it has... What's this? If I... Usually you can't sheep... Yeah, you can't sheep an elite. This is not good. I really want the experience, but I think it will just kill me, and unfortunately that ballista is not in a good enough place to... There. So I can use that to avoid death, and because it uses a lot of soul points, then I can continue healing myself, hopefully, because it's worth the experience and the big fat chest of loot. What do I get? An item I can't use, of course. Shiny. Although it is a yellow, which is sort of a rare weapon. Extra damage equal to your mana? That would be amazing! Yeah, as you can see, there's actually quite a bit of variety in the equipment. So, the equipment, the monster variety is huge. And, overall, it's a very enticing package because it's not expensive. It offers a lot of things that are meant to keep you kind of coming back. And, it does. It absolutely does do that. So, yeah, I'd actually recommend giving this one a try. Give it a shot if you're curious, because, I mean, yeah, it's weird. But it's good weird. And although it takes a little while to get used to, perhaps, it is very much worth it if you're willing to give it a shot. It is highly original, I guess would be one of the best things you could say about it. And, it's weird. Definitely weird, but worth a shot. So this has been Runestone Keeper, ladies and gentlemen. Oh god, there's a ranged monster, by the way, so if I was using a melee weapon, I wouldn't be able to hit this until I clicked enough tiles to lead up to it, but luckily I'm cool enough to have a ranged weapon. There we go. Ah, god, troll. Okay, so you want to kill this thing as quickly as possible. Every enemy has its own strategies. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you'll give this one a shot, because it's a bit odd. The company has a pretty interesting set of ideas, I think, for this. Blackfire Games have created something the likes of which I have not quite seen before. By the way, I am very close to 500 subscribers at time of recording. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for that. I've never expected to ever get that successful this quickly. That's really cool. So thanks if you're one of those 500. If you're not, you know, go ahead and subscribe if you want to. And expect a 500 subscriber special video very soon. Hint, hint. It involves a little studio by the name of Clover that no longer exists. Anyway, thanks very much, guys. I hope this has been, a interesting little look into something quite strange, but very much worth your time, actually, if dungeon crawling with a little bit of puzzling sounds interesting to you. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.